Hey everyone, it's Melanie of our Studio 320 and I'm standing in my dining room roasting because I am all bundled up to get into the garage to start sanding this. Now you're probably thinking, wait, I recognize that. If you've watched my videos, I refinished this cute little shaker dresser last year. I bleached it and I learned how to take off veneer from the top here. Look how pretty it is. It really is, I do say so myself, nicely done. But it's not appealing to a wide enough audience. No one is wanting to buy it. I have decided to refinish it again. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment and press that red button. You can find me on Instagram and follow me on Etsy. I usually say that the other way around, where a lot of my projects are being sold that I did right here on my channel. Wow, I changed that whole thing. Stick around. I started with an 80 grit sandpaper just because I like to go slow in the beginning, even though I did this piece before. And I had forgotten, there was a couple layers of polyurethane on top of the stenciling. It took a little longer than I thought, but I switched to 60 grit and it was fine. A quick tour of the top here. This is a very old piece and it is not weathering well. You can see on the back that there is quite the gap. There are 3 nails there. They are sticking through on the top. I needed to figure out how I was going to fix this top, along with these cracks on the corners and the cracks that were appearing on the top. I only had to lightly scuff sand this piece in order to get it ready to paint. I'm using some Tite Bond wood glue. It's a nice glue, and a clamp. And anytime that you're going to repair a crack like this, you're going to need a clamp so that you can get the glue in there and then clamp it down tight until it dries. I debated whether to put this next footage in because it didn't work. I am using a strap to try and tighten up the top to the body. And you can see the gap in the back like I showed you just a minute ago, and it didn't work at all. In fact, I did a little more damage. I created some cracks in the top. So I guess the lesson is be careful when you're working with a very old piece. My go-to wood filler is plastic Wood X, but it is toxic, so you have to wear a respirator when you're sanding because you don't want to breathe that stuff. And you have to use a lower grit like a 320 or a 220 to start, just to get a feel for what you're working with. Now, I showed you the nails in the beginning that were in the back. And I decided to pry off the top and then push it back down so I could get a hold of the nail. And it didn't work right away, but it finally did work right here. And I just pulled the nails out, and then I used screws so I could really screw it down. And you can start to see that the top indeed gets connected to the body of the piece again. You just need to make sure that where you're putting that screw in, there's a piece of wood for the screw to go into. After I'm done with the back, I want to cover up those holes, so I put some wood filler on the top. And I made sure that I put the screws in far enough so that I would have a place to put the wood filler. Just wanted to check in really quick to let you know what I've been up to. I stained the drawers. I actually stained them twice, and I'm going to tell you what happened here. So I watched this video on YouTube from the Wood Whisperer. His name is Mark, and I have learned a lot from him already, so check him out. There is a link below for that. The video that I watched first was a video about blotching when you're staining. There are times and certain wood that create more blotching than others. And when I say blotching, just areas that are more concentration of stain. There's some areas that are too light. Check out that video. He's got great examples, different tests, techniques on how to have a more even surface for your stain. And one of the things he talks about, and what I've used before, is pre-stained wood conditioner. It doesn't always work. It works a little bit, but I've actually, in some instances, not seen any difference at all. The one that intrigued me was one that he made up himself. He called it Mark Juice. You gotta watch the video. His recipe was 3 tablespoons of Titebond wood glue, 3 tablespoons of General Finishes top coat. He actually said you could probably use any kind, like flat or satin. I would say probably stay away from the high gloss, probably a flat or satin. I used satin in this case. And you get yourself a 1 quart container. You put the 3 tablespoons of the glue, 3 tablespoons of the top coat, and then you fill the rest to make a quart with water. Then you stir it and stir it and stir it until you feel like all of the glue has dissolved. Then what you do is you put a coat of that on your wood, and then you let it dry. Then you go back and you lightly sand it with maybe a 220 grit, and then you put on your stain. What that does is it gives you a very even finish. Now, my argument for not using it is that I didn't like the results. He did say that you can mess around with the quantities of the glue or the top coat, maybe more water. I would say maybe a little less top coat. That's where I would start, because what I saw happening was the stain wasn't allowed to soak in enough for my taste. I am not saying not to try it, because I think that there is something to this that is worth investigating. However, on these particular drawers, I decided to go another route. But again, I think this is worth looking into a little bit more, so check that video out. So what I did was I tried it out on one drawer, and I thought the results were pretty good, but there was something I wasn't quite sure about. But I went ahead and I put the Mark Juice on all of the drawers, and then I decided that I didn't like the results. It just didn't soak into the wood enough. There was a little bit of light coming through, and until you do it, it's really hard to explain. Until you watch that video, I think you'll get a sense of what that looks like. I also had a problem with my sander that I didn't really recognize until I went back and stained. I did know that I had a problem when I was sanding, but I thought that I remedied that situation while I was doing it. My sander got stuck the cord got stuck a couple of times on the table, and it would tip, and that's never good. You're always going to get some kind of a blemish in the wood if your sander is tipped, and it wasn't my best job. So I went ahead and I resanded all of the drawers after I had stained them because I couldn't see it until I stained. The beauty of having 2 weeks to do these projects instead of 1 is I can take the time and do that, which in the end will give me a better product all the way around. Something to think about. I'm going to be using Fusion Mineral Paint in the color Hazelwood. This is a color that has some red in it, which creates a gray that's warmer, and it also has a bit of a brown tint to it. So I think this is going to look really nice on this piece along with my lovely stained drawers. I want to get to work so I can get this piece finished. Stick around. This little tool I'm about to show you is very handy. It's called a nail set, and that's exactly what it does. It just sets the nail below the surface so that you can cover the top with wood filler. You can't really do that with a hammer. Phil gave it to me for Christmas. Okay, I'm using 2 stains on this project. The first is a Brazilian rosewood, and the one I'm putting on right now is General Finishes Antique Walnut. And the reason I put that over the top was because the Brazilian rosewood just was a little too red for this project. I'm quickly sanding down these drawers with a very, very fine grit sanding sponge, and then I'm stirring up my top coat really, really well before I think I put 2 coats of polyurethane on these drawers. Just like the back of the top was coming apart from the body of the piece, this was too. And as you see me drill through here, I should have looked a little closer, you'll see in a second, but look at how well that takes care of the warping. Now here, watch, it pops right back up because that screw just didn't grip the wood for some reason, so I had to put it farther back, but look what happened. I got a nice big crack in the top from screwing in the front because it was warping, so I wanted to take care of that. And that's one of the problems with a really old piece. You're going to run into that, but it wasn't anything I couldn't fix. And here I just drilled another spot and made sure there was a piece of wood underneath, and I screwed it in. Then I found another one, screwed it in again, and you're going to see it, and you can see that it helped get rid of that warp. What can I say? I mean, that's what happens when you're working with a very old piece. Just keep that in mind. I put some wood filler on some spots on the front that seem to be cracking a little bit more than others. And then I used some caulk on the ends of the piece because there was some separation from those panels. So I filled those in so that wouldn't be a problem. Now I'll be honest with you, this hardware, I'm not happy with it. I put some gilding wax on it from Dixie Belle, very pretty gold. Use it quite often, especially on hardware. I'll probably end up switching it out because it was very cheap hardware. Should have known, $18 for 10 pieces. I put 2 coats of Fusion Mineral Paint. The color is Hazelwood. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a warm color, but it's still a nice color. I sanded it all down with my sanding sponge, very fine grit, and it looks great. And now we're at the end. I'm putting on the hardware, and I'm just going to touch it up with some gilding wax, and we are finished. Well, friends, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think we learned a few things together, and I think that this piece of furniture is going to be much more sellable than what we started with. So I call that a success. Stick around for the after pictures. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
Lost again, going